All right, hello and welcome to Burn Pile. I promised last week that I would rant about video games, and so I think it's appropriate. This is GDQ week. If you don't know what GDQ is, it's a speedrunning marathon. If you don't know what speedrunning is when you take a game, not always, but usually an older game, like a classic game that's decades old, and you play it over and over and over again, thousands and thousands of times until you find every glitch and every trick, and you go for a world record in completion. Um, that's a very basic summary of it. But the point is, it's extremely time intensive, and it's like, do you want to dedicate years of your life to playing like a 20 or 30-year-old Super Mario game? So of course it attracts like a certain kind of person. I am not above it. I love GDQ. It happens twice a year. I watch it every time. I watch as much as possible. I can admire the achievements that they make, but the thing is, by and large, it takes a certain kind of person. Okay, let's say that it takes a certain kind of person to play the same game over and over and over for years, and to grind for months to try to shave a few seconds off of a time in a level, or to find like every little glitch and every trick. And so the kind of person that attracts, there's an overlap with another kind of person. And what I'm talking about here is, if you sit down and watch GDQ, the number of transgender people there is absolutely insane. Like, if you see, I don't know, in your daily life, if you're in like even a big populated area, to see any of them at all, you'll see one. I don't know. I don't live in the US. I live somewhere where it's rarer unless you go seek it out. But I can probably count on one hand the number of like transgender people, the number of male to female transgenders that I've seen it like this year. It's not very many. I think that's probably the same for the US. Like, you might see them sometimes, but you're not going to be seeing them all the time, right? But if you turn on GDQ, you would think that it's like, I don't know, 10% of the population, 20% of the population. And people act like there's not a connection between autism and like male to female transgenderism. And look, this kind of relates to like what I was talking about before with Graham Hancock, even, where it's like, okay, you're going to get a certain kind of person who's saying like the really out there theories in the world. That doesn't mean like that they're like a high quality person. It just means they've been shut out of other things. There's something to that with these kind of people. They're extremely dedicated, but to sit there and grind Super Mario, to play Super Mario World, and to be in an online community where you're looking at all the tricks for Super Mario World, and to really dedicate your life to Super Mario World, right? To being in like the top 10 Super Mario World players and just playing the same game over and over and over again. It requires this dedication and this focus that means that while you're grinding it out, you must be, to some extent, living in your own world. And that absolutely relates to being an AGP, male to female transgender person. And like, I don't even hate on that, because like, what, I'm going to sit back and enjoy someone playing Super Mario World in like 90 minutes with all exits or whatever the record is. I'm going to sit back and enjoy that, and then I'm going to complain like, oh, this isn't like a normal, well-adjusted person? Like, I would be the stupid one if I complained about that. Now, do I think people like that should be in charge of important things? No, not really. I question their empathy. Although they would think that they're extremely empathetic, they actually have an extremely narrow worldview, and you can tell by the way they sort of domineer people and dominate and ban everyone from the GDQ Twitch chat and have these really strict rules and make sure that people who don't feel like them feel uncomfortable. Their worldview is very narrow, actually. But how could it not be? Really, how could it not be? How could they have empathy for people different from them? If you're grinding out Super Mario World or Super Metroid or Sonic the Hedgehog 3 for literally years, like if I sit back and I watch that and I enjoy it, and then I'm like, what is wrong with these people? They seem weird. I'm actually the retarded one in that scenario. Like you've got to it's like it would be like watching the Olympics and then being like, why do these people have such defined muscles? Like, it's just it goes with what they're doing. It has to be that way. If you like went back in time and intervened in their lives and like showed them some healthy, positive role model of masculinity or something, then they'd take their focus and they'd go be an accountant and they'd have a wife and kids. What they're doing instead, I mean, grinding Super Mario. And don't get me wrong, like this is the thing. I'm not a hater. I think it's awesome. I love GDQ. I look forward to it. It happens every 6 months. I really look forward to it. I watch as much as possible. Another thing with this, I have a friend, an online friend. I never met him IRL, but he's like he's somewhat internet famous, I would say. What I mean by that, there's like a documentary about him on YouTube that has over 1 million views or something. He's like a known figure. And he has this crazy, crazy narrow focus. And he is developing his own game. And he is very, very eccentric, at the least. At a minimum, you would say he's very eccentric. But that's his whole charm. That's everything he has going. And when I started having conversations with him online, I wouldn't tolerate the way he talks to me coming from someone else. Like he's very narrowly focused on certain topics. If I try to, like, in a normal conversation, if someone's talking about themselves, of course I'll ask about what they're doing, I'll ask what's going on, and then eventually I'll share something about myself. Of course there's a give and take in conversations. Everybody wants to talk about themselves, but you ask about the other person, and then so I'll share something about myself. I can tell he doesn't like it. He does not like it. He wants to get the topic back to, even if I share something that I thought would be interesting to him, he doesn't care. It just, like, something about not like, oh, what I had for lunch or something, but like something in my life that connects to what he's doing. Just a flat line, just zero interest. He'll go back to complaining about what's going on with him. And that's because of who he is. If I expected something else, I would be an idiot. And I think it's like this with a lot of game developers. He's a very extreme example. He's very, very extreme. I don't think they're all like this. He's so extreme that he actually could not possibly work at a game company. I say this as someone who's worked at a game company myself. What he's doing with the game he's making is essentially outsider art. It's like folk art. Like the definition of folk art is something like, it's art made by someone who has no formal training, so they just go in their own direction. That's exactly what he's doing. I mean, I'm sure he's used some tutorials and things, but he's building his own custom engine. He's just doing crazy things that no one would do. And there's no way he'd be able to like have a boss who could tell him to do something creatively or even technically that he didn't want to do. It's not the kind of person he is. And the thing is, someone like that, so if the subject does come up of something at all political or whatever, he has this very reflexive left-wing answer, which I wouldn't normally be friends with someone like that, but for him, I will. Because clearly he's grown up somewhere where it's working class, it's just working class, you know, poorer whites. It's like a poorer white community. That's where he grew up. That's what he knows. And then his freedom sort of came from the gaming community, the internet, people who follow him. And naturally that's all going to be left wing, and they can explain things to him and they'll all make sense. In a way, he's vulnerable to things like that. Because how could he not be? And if I were to give him too much pushback, and I thought a good thing that I've done is I do give him pushback. I do give him a degree of pushback because I think he has this reflexive idea that everything remotely associated with conservatism is just retarded, which a lot of it is, by the way. But he has this sort of shallow view of things, and so I would give him pushback, especially during COVID, because he would talk about things he didn't like about the COVID policies in America. So I would tell him things I didn't like about the COVID policies where I live, and I would give him pushback about everything he was saying, there is a give and take here. You can go too far with things. And I could tell he didn't like that at all. But I could tell he also, I think to some degree, trusted me or trusts me. I hope he does. And he did keep talking to me. So I thought it was a good thing to at least put that into his life. But if I were to like really, really argue with him something about politics, like there's no way he follows politics closely. Um, and he shouldn't, because he's focused on his own thing. So even if I were to successfully convert him over from the ideas he had, it would be in a shallow way and it wouldn't even be meaningful. To grind things out at that level, to be making your own game engine, and to be going for a world record in an old game, just you're to some extent you're cutting yourself off from the rest of the world, because it's almost never going to be a great achievement, and it's almost never going to be that lucrative. So it's almost like I was talking about my friend with some other people I know, and I was saying it's almost like in medieval times, if he was like a monk or something, like what he needs some benefactor, some king, some abbot at a monastery, if this were another time, and they would just have him off somewhere, and he would just be dedicating his life to a new interpretation of some scripture or something, and instead he's focused on this other thing. That's just what it is. So if you see people like that and you just write them off, I mean, you're right in a way. Of course you're right, but you'd have to want them to totally change. Like, these are people, you can't separate the wheat from the chaff. Now there are some people like on GDQ who seem fairly well adjusted, but they're like kind of, while they're on, the announcer has to be reading out trans rights, and the crowd has to shout trans rights because there are too many heterosexual men on the screen. Like, they have to be dominated by the other people. It's like an autistic, like superficial version of politics. Like, in a way it's gross, but if you're in there to see what they're actually doing, and you can ignore these sort of transparent things that are distasteful, it's actually quite interesting. And this is the problem with the right-wing criticism of video games. It's coming from people who are also very shallow and reactionary. Reactionary is probably giving them too much credit, but they're very just reflexive. Like, there's some fat autistic guy screeching about, oh, there's a black samurai in the video game. But of course there is. You're not going to get a serious takedown of that because it's fat autistic guys on the other side screeching about how there aren't black samurais in the samurai video games. And they're the ones who made the thing. So you can't expect the criticism to be elevated above that. The only quote unquote video game critics who are trying to do like high level criticism are people who are embarrassed that they write about video games. They wish that they wrote for the New York Review of Books, but they don't have the talent. So they're writing about children's toys and they have to kind of elevate it. So what's an easy way to elevate it? I'll write about social justice in games. So that's what they do. But the difference, here's what, if you follow games and you follow gaming media, go look at some like left-wing think piece about video games, about social justice in video games. Go just read it. Just go read every word of that. And then go to the New York Review of Books and read any article. And then you'll see the difference. If they had talent, they would be writing about something else. They don't have the humility to just write about games. And on the right-wing side of that, you don't really have anyone who wants to take games seriously who is like a serious person. The people who want to take games seriously and want to get back to the fun, they're like, why aren't there big titties in this game? Which is actually a great question. Why aren't there big titties in this game? They made Lara Croft's boobs smaller or whatever. Well, there is something you can question there. What is unhealthy about, even in the fantasy girl is not sexy anymore? Because the original 90s Tomb Raider games had a huge female fan base. In fact, if you watch GDQ, a lot of the runs for the 90s Tomb Raider games are being done by biological women. Because part of the fantasy for being a woman for a game like that would be that you're cool and sexy. Just like for James Bond, he's cool and sexy. Now, like, I don't think a guy would say that when he talks about James Bond. He'd just say he's cool, but it means he's sexually attractive too. Like, you could self-insert and be like, I'd be like James Bond. I would do the. It's like a fantasy. It's an escapist thing. So why is it that the escapist fantasy with Lara Croft now, they've cut out the sexiness for her? Because are women, they don't want to admit that even in their fantasies, they want to be... I don't know. I'm not trying to do that right now. But what you'll get is some fat neckbeard guy just saying, where are the titties? Which is valuable in its own way. I don't want to be too harsh on that. But the quality of everything video game related that's outside of the creation and playing of games, and by creation I'm talking about the technical aspects of it, is going to be very low quality. The creativity is, to the extent that it exists, it's in the gameplay, or it should be. And if you're looking for a high quality narrative, if you're looking for great storytelling, it's in some Japanese games where they take that seriously and they're more concerned about pure entertainment. But in the West, you're going to get The Last of Us. You're going to get kind of hack HBO, what do you call it? Prestige TV. Yeah, you're going to get prestige TV. In some cases, even prestige TV writers. You have a lot of cross-pollination now, with, of course, The Last of Us being a series on HBO. And that's sort of the highest it can be. It's never going to be great. That's the thing. It's just never going to be great because of the kind of people that it attracts. And the criticism is never going to be great either. The criticism is either going to be quote unquote woke bullshit from people who have a midwit IQ, or it's going to be where are the titties from low IQ guys. You're not going to get someone like Delicious Tacos writing a script for a game. I mean, maybe you will. That would be cool. But there isn't this backlash that you would hope that there would be. The backlash there is superficial. It's not a serious challenge to what things are. And it's all because of the nature of the people who really, really, really play and develop these games. I mean, there is the whole Call of Duty bro world, but I think even there, like, don't you like unlock like a Lizzo skin in the new Call of Duty or something? Who knows? Anyway, moving on. I actually do have some good stuff. I've got stuff left over from last week. I wasn't expecting my opening rant either last week or this week to go so long. So I've got a ton of stuff left over as well as new stuff. We'll see what we can even get into. I think eventually I'm going to do another hour each week. And the other hour would be behind a paywall on Substack. But I'm not sure if the timing is right. I can't decide if I should just start doing that and then build up a bank of these bonus episodes. So if someone does decide they want to pay when they eventually subscribe, they'll just get a big backlog. Or if I should wait until I have the audience. So I don't know. What I don't want to do is just pass the hat around to the few dozen people who are listening right now. Or maybe I do want to do that. I don't know. But anyway, that'll be coming, I don't know, sooner or later in 2025, let's say. It won't be next week, I'll tell you that. But the point is, I do have a ton of material. I could probably do like 10 hours a week. That's not going to happen. But anyway, I love this. There's an outlet called Protestia. As far as I can tell, this is like a Christian Protestant outlet. I think it is. And they mainly just criticize Protestant heretics, which is fun. That's cool. I think they do sometimes insult Catholics, which is also fun. I like that. But anyway, they've got this guy named Todd Bentley. Now, I don't follow this stuff. This just came up on X. I have no idea who this guy is. I have no idea about Christian drama or what's going on in that world. But this came up and I really, really liked it. I'm going to take you on the journey that I went on when I saw this tweet. Okay, so it says, Todd Bentley recently spoke at a Morning Star Ministries conference where he claimed Jesus took him to the gates of Hades and gave him the keys of Peter, along with the power and authority to, quote, cancel death, unquote, and cure terminal illnesses. All right, I'm going to play this video. I've actually got to boost the audio for this part. I do it all live. So here we go.
Really say, but I had an experience with the Lord that's absolutely transformed me.
Now, to look at this guy, he looks like a piece of shit. He's all tatted up. He's got the shaved head with the gigantic, disgusting red beard. He's in terrible shape. He's like fat. He's chubby. Yeah, he's not like a real American fat, like not severely obese, but he's everywhere else in the world he'd be very fat. He's quite chubby. He's got tattoos all over his arms. He's got tattoos, I think, on his neck. He's wearing glasses. Like, he looks like he's a barista with a few rape convictions. Okay.
This last month has been like living under an open heaven. It's like there's an open heaven. I'm never without feeling like the Father is right here. And I did see some things. And I did hear some things. And a lot of it took about 3 days after the episode for me to remember what my spirit was doing when my body was in that hospital.
Okay, so he's Canadian. On the back of his neck, which you can see, it's like partially on his neck, partially, it's like right behind his ear, so it's partially on like the back of his shaved head. He's got a Canadian leaf, which I could stop the video right now. It would be enough. That would be enough. You would be like, hey, Wizard Cat, that is crazy. And that would be a good story. That would be enough. But no, we're going to go on. Let's go on.
Unconscious for 10 hours. My spirit traveled to the valley of the shadow of death.
So he's talking about he had a medical episode, and he's up here speaking at a conference. It's all old men who look more like typical preachers behind him. But he has this medical episode. 3 days later, he somehow, quote unquote, remembers this spiritual journey he had.
The Lord was with me. And I've never seen the Lord like this, but he was a ball, like an orb of light. Stood over my left shoulder behind me, and it was Jesus. And he said, look at your right hand. And I'm standing and looking at the gates of Hades. I've been to the gates of heaven. I've had heavenly experiences. I love the open heaven, but I've never been to the gates of Hades. And I'm glad I wasn't there for discipline. I wasn't there for like some great rebuke. I was there to get authority.
Now, why would you think you might be there for discipline or some great rebuke? Why were you worried about that? This is called foreshadowing, because there's going to be some great stuff later when we get to this guy's Wikipedia. But, all right, let's go on.
Because the mantle of authority is what the church needs, because we got to stop giving permission to things that we have the authority to shut down the gates of hell, and that's why we have the key.
All right, so if you're just listening, the camera's been on him and the people behind him on stage the whole time. Now it's cut out, so they're in this like conference room, and it's a bunch of slovenly retards in chairs, in tables around him. Looks like a bit like a wedding reception. Bunch of idiots here. Listening to this guy, he's saying that he's got the keys of the gates of Hades. He was talking to Jesus, who first appeared as an orb of light.
And the Lord had the key there. He said, this key is what I gave to Peter when I told him that he was to shut down the gates of hell, that the church had the authority.
And I need to emphasize, if you're just listening, this guy has tattoos on his arms that are going all the way down to the backs of his hands. This guy just looks like a homeless guy. If it weren't for the totally shaved head, which implies enough competency to shave your head or pay someone to do so, like, this guy looks so disgusting. He looks like a drug dealer or someone in the sex trade somehow, human trafficker. He looks disgusting. And he's up here in front of an audience of turbo normies saying that Jesus gave him the keys of Peter, and they're clapping. They're going with it. They're clapping. Okay.
Experienced it. I mean, I've seen people raised from the dead. You know, I've shared that here in Pakistan, the 3 people raised from the dead in revival. I mean, I've seen it.
There you go, folks. There it is. He's seen people raised from the dead. Okay, so this whole time I've just been playing the video that's embedded in the tweet from Protestia. I actually went and found the YouTube video for this thing. I found another little part that I liked. I've got that ready here. All right, let me get the audio turned down. Got to adjust the levels. I don't know what they're doing, these churches recording this stuff. Which, I mean, getting the keys to the gates of Hades. How about you get the keys to the gates of your audio department and you fix that, you fucking pieces of shit. Fuck you. Hold on, technical difficulties. It's so easy to criticize until you can't find how to close the chat relay when you're about to play the video on your podcast. Okay. All right, let's listen to this part.
What I feared. See, this is not just about being free from sickness, it's about being free from fear, because too many Christians have fear. Fear and uncertainty has paralyzed us, and we're not even moving in the power and the authority they have in Africa, where they're already in the revival of raising the dead. Almost everybody's seen the dead raised in Africa. It's true.
All right. Now, in Africa, I don't know if you know this, folks. In Africa, almost everybody's seen the dead raised. Almost everybody's seen the dead raised in Africa. I have a friend in Africa. I wonder if he's listening to this. I got to ask him about seeing the dead raised. Almost everybody's seen it. Okay? You go to Africa, you say, hey, have you ever seen a dead guy come back to life? They'll be like, yes. Yes, of course, this is Africa. Almost everybody's seen that. What are you talking about? All right, so there's this retard. I don't think we need to hear any more from him, but you've just got to, you've got to see that. So this is the journey I went on. I got that tweet. I watched that tweet. I was like, okay, this is entertaining. This retard with the tattoos. So then I go to the article that's on the Protestia website about this guy. Todd Bentley says he's been given the authority to, quote, cancel death, unquote, plus heal terminal illnesses. So it's kind of just like the tweet. 6 weeks ago, Bentley was taken to the hospital by ambulance after experiencing unexpected seizures. So, okay, the thing is, this guy, he's a big, like, faith healer. That's his whole deal. So it's kind of a doctor heal thyself sort of situation here. He's supposed to be a faith healer, but then he has these seizures. He goes to the emergency room, goes to the hospital. Okay. Within a day, he'd recover, claiming he'd been miraculously healed. Apart from using this event as a fundraiser, we wondered how he would spin this to take advantage of the goodwill. And now we know. So the problem I have with this article is clearly Protestia has it out for Todd Bentley. And I don't know why. Maybe they're jealous of the power and authority he's received from Jesus. I suspect that that's what it is. But they have obviously been writing about him a lot. They assume that you know a lot about him. They assume that you know he's a piece of shit. And they're writing like you know who he is, you know what's going on. Okay, so here's where it gets interesting. Bentley was invited to be a conference speaker at Morningstar Ministries by Rick Joyner, a charismatic leader who restored Bentley to ministry on 2 separate occasions after he was found guilty of sexual impropriety. All right, this is when I got excited. This is when this story went from a maybe it'll be on burn pile to a definitely. So they have a link later. They say, we have written extensively about Bentley. Yes, I know. You're assuming in your first few paragraphs that I know about him. You're really burying the lead because you're a retarded internet outlet with no editing. But this is still good reporting. It's still good. Okay. Recall that in the summer, which this is no way to start a sentence either. This is not a professional writing outlet. It kind of sucks ass. But okay, recall that in the summer of 2008, Todd was flying high, filling stadiums with a world-renowned. They didn't write the right words. Filling stadiums with a world-renowned revival in Lakeland, where he claimed to have raised multiple people from the dead. Okay, so in 2008, he was claiming this himself. So it's pretty cool for him to just bring this up again, be like, I've seen it in Pakistan. Everybody's seen it in Africa. Maybe now he's a little shy to say that he's done it himself. He got a little shy, but he does want you to know that it's a thing. It can happen. Okay. He was getting so much attention that 17 high-profile charismatic apostles, including blah 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 blah, came together in a ceremony of apostolic alignment over 32-year-old Todd Bentley, commissioning him to lead the Lakeland revival and recognizing him as an evangelist doing the work of the Lord, led by the Holy Spirit. Within a month of his alignment and commissioning ceremony, Bentley would announce that he was leaving Lakeland and stepping down. A few days later, he told the world he was divorcing his wife, and it was revealed that during his time as leader of the revival, as he was getting aligned by the apostles, he had been engaging in, quote, an unhealthy relationship on an emotional level with a female member of his staff, whom he later married. So, it's not all bad. It's not all bad. He did marry her. He wasn't just playing around. He did marry her. So it's fine. Relax. Relax. Okay, so I got a little sick of this article. This is what I mean, taking you on the journey that I went on. I got a little sick of this article, and I found that the Wikipedia article about Todd Bentley is better. It's better. So let's get into the Wikipedia for Todd Bentley. It's more interesting. All right, let's get into the controversies. The Nightline did an expose about his faith healings or whatever. Okay, who cares about that? All right, so this is from the Wikipedia article now. Bentley, and the heading for this Wikipedia section: divorce and sex addiction. Which, I mean, I don't want to question the Lord about who gets the keys to Hades. It's his decision. It's not mine. I'm not jealous that I didn't get the keys. I understand, but I mean, come on. Was this an oversight? All right. Bentley announced his separation from his wife in August 2008 and resigned from the board of Fresh Fire. I guess that's whatever. It was where he was preaching. A statement released by the remaining board members said, Todd Bentley has entered into an unhealthy relationship on an emotional level with a female member of his staff, and that he would refrain from all public ministry for a season to receive counsel in his personal life. Okay, so the seniors at the church, the guys who had sort of made him a made man, endorsed him as an evangelist, probably because he was bringing in crazy money to the church, just crazy people, crazy money, doing all this faith healing bullshit. So they brought him in, right? And then his wife starts to complain because he's fucking someone on his staff. So then they go into panic mode and they say, well, what the fuck are we going to do? How are we going to deal with this? Like, we can't have that. This guy's a big earner for us. All right, someone needs to fix this. So they can't just kick him out. They have to do something. So they're like, all right, we're going to do marriage counseling for a season. What they're probably thinking, they're like, we'll do marriage counseling for a season. And Todd or one of us or one of our ghostwriters, we're going to write a book about this whole thing. It'll be our marriage counseling book. Todd will be back on the circuit. He'll be talking about how he worked things out with his wife. That's their plan, I think. Okay, here we go. Some of Bentley's Christian contemporaries called for him to step down in the wake of the scandal, stating that Christian leadership is incompatible with marital unfaithfulness. All right, this guy's a big earner for us. He's a big earner. What are you talking about? Okay. In response, a committee made up of blah, 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 blah was formed to oversee the process of spiritually restoring Bentley's family. All right. So if you go in your church and you say you're cheating on your wife, a committee does not get formed to oversee the process of spiritually restoring you. Okay. Everybody just sides with your wife. Okay. Maybe they'll have some Christian message for you too. But a committee getting formed, this is for big earners. This is for the big guys. You don't get access to this. This is for if you haven't raised somebody from the dead, okay? You're not getting this kind of treatment from the church when you cheat on your wife. Okay, so in November 2008, the board of Freshfire announced that Todd has yet to enter into a clear system of accountability with the leaders he identified. On March 9th, 2009, Rick Joyner announced that Bentley had remarried. Okay, so if you get into this, he remarried, he married the woman he was having the affair with. So they bend over backwards to help him here. They say, we're going to restore your family. That means get you back together with your wife. He says, yeah, okay, sure. And then he ignores all that, and he marries the woman he was fucking. Okay, so you know what? Fine. You might be like, okay, this story's too long. It's not that interesting. You know, bastards go crazy, have affairs. I know he's all tatted up. All right, but wait. Just wait. All right, so there's accusations of more sexual impropriety, but none of that's important. That's not as important. What's important is the early life. Okay, so this is the journey I had been on. I jumped right to the divorce and sex addiction section. I had ignored the early life section. I want you to enjoy this early life section with me just as much as I did. Okay. So remember, he's got... This is all in the past. The most recent thing is the thing I started with. He's got the keys to Hades now. Jesus appeared to him in an orb of light. Everyone at that church is backing him up. You know, fucking the lady on his staff, dumping the old wife, getting the new wife, the new sexual impropriety allegations, all that. Water under the bridge. But let's take it all the way back to when Todd Bentley was 15 years old. Okay. Early life. Bentley was convicted at age 15 of sexually assaulting a much younger boy 2 years earlier. All right, you've got this guy. So when he was 13, he sexually assaulted a very young boy. Now, this is why first impressions are often correct. If you just look at him, if you just look at what he looks like, if you look at the tattoos and the beard and the glasses and the bald head, you would say the odds are that at some point in his life, he sexually assaulted a young boy. Just... if you just look at him, would you want your young boy around him? Just going by appearances. And now everything is water under the bridge. Sure, when he was 13, he fucked a little boy. Sure, as soon as he had wealth and power and was an important person, he dumped his wife and started fucking someone else. Sure, he said he would get back together with her, but he actually just married the younger, hotter wife. I'm assuming. I don't know if she was younger or hotter, but probably. Maybe she was boyish. Maybe. But all, you know, he's a big earner, so it's all water under the bridge. We live in hell. Okay, I've got a probably first and only story from GQ. GQ did something amazing. They published a story from Paul Scalise. Paul Scalise is better known as Lindy Man. I think everyone who listens to this probably knows who Paul Scalise is. He's a very cool guy. What he does, and I love this, is he tweets constantly, and then he deletes like 3/4 of the tweets that he ever makes. So you see his tweet, it's very ephemeral in a way. I kind of wish Twitter was like that. Like, what if Twitter just had like a, after 4 hours your tweet gets deleted policy? That'd be interesting. People would tweet different things. But that's what he does. He tweets and he deletes. And if you don't know what the Lindy principle is, it's that basically if something has been around for a long time, it will probably continue for a long time. If something has been around for a small amount of time, it probably won't be around that much longer. That's basically what it is. That's a simple explanation. He's written a book about that. He writes a newsletter. All right, and he got to write for GQ, which is very strange. And he actually went on Twitter and insulted GQ after writing for them. And it's called Luigi and Me. And that's because Luigi Mangione actually DM'd Paul Scalise. He DM'd Lindy Man, praising him, and Lindy Man never responded. So I saw that he had tweeted when everything happened, when Luigi got caught, Paul tweeted that he wished that he had answered that DM, something like that. He said it in like a humorous way. And I wasn't totally sure if it was a joke, but it wasn't a joke. He really did. All right, so it's all about Luigi. It's all stuff we know. But Paul had written a post about the unhappiness of health influencers. This is one of his bigger performing posts in the Lindy newsletter, which I think you have to pay for. I don't think I have access to it. But it's about that Brian Johnson guy who just dedicates his whole life to looking young, and kind of what a loser that guy is, which I totally agree with. And so Luigi was actually a paid subscriber to Lindy Man's newsletter, and he DM'd him. So let's read the DM from Luigi Mangione. And this is all a quote from that. "It baffles me so much that anyone could possibly follow Brian Johnson. The dude just looks eerie." And he's doing that really gay thing, that kind of Reddit thing with the word looks is between two asterisks for emphasis, which I guess in Markdown that makes it bold, I think. So it's just crept into the internet. Anyway, I'm a fairly rational, non-superstitious person, but even when I look at that guy, it's immediately obvious he's a literal vampire. Pale, gaunt, avoids the sun, dead look in his eyes, feasts on the blood of his own son. So that's a reference to he actually does get blood transfusions from his own son, which is very weird. I agree, that's very, very weird. "How can you be obsessed with health and longevity, but literally avoid the source of all life energy on Earth? Parentheses, the sun." Okay, so that was his DM to Lindy Man, and Lindy Man didn't respond, but here's what he writes. "Mangione's message to me made me think about what he had done in a new light. In a historical light, which is what I usually do in my writing. Hating healthcare companies is very normal in America, but killing CEOs in the middle of Manhattan, that's unheard of. Part of why this case gripped the nation was because it was so unique." Okay, and before that, he writes, "I usually respond to followers, but I never wrote Mangione back because something felt off with his syntax. It rubbed me the wrong way. Announcing that you're, quote, fairly rational is something someone says on a first date before engaging you in a relationship that is hell for 2 years. This is why Lindy Man is a cut above other writers, why he's too good to write for GQ, and why he said that after he published this. That I actually do like Luigi. I think there's a generational divide, but I'm on the Zoomer side. I think he's fine. I think, what he did is really cool. I don't know if I'm going to get kicked off YouTube for saying that. Violence is bad, whatever. But yeah, I agree. This DM sucks my ass. This DM really, really sucked, and I totally get why Lindy Man wouldn't respond to it, even if he responds to most of his DMs. Saying you're a fairly rational, non-superstitious person, it's like saying, by the way, I'm very cool and smart. Like, what are you doing? What are you doing, Luigi? Come on, Luigi, I wanna like you. We need more photos and less of Luigi's writing, I think, for him to win the PR war. All right, next one. Federal agents searched the home of a former top NYPD official. Okay, this one got on my radar because it's a lesson for men everywhere, I think. Okay, Jeffrey Madry, who had been chief of department, resigned on December 20th after a lieutenant accused him of coercing her into sex. So you got, this is the a top NYPD guy, you know, pinnacle of the career you could have as a cop, you know, one of the top people at the NYPD. And there's a photo of him here. He's just like a normal, overweight, middle-aged black guy. Just a normal looking guy. Wouldn't look at him twice on the street, but he got to the top of the game there. Top of the game in the NYPD. He took his career as far as it could possibly go. And then he threw it all away. So, federal agents on Thursday morning searched the home of Jeffrey Madry, the former chief of department for the New York Police Department. Commissioner Jessica Tisch said, Mr. Madry, who resigned on December 20th after a lieutenant accused him of coercing her into sex, is also being investigated by the department's Internal Affairs Bureau, which is working with law enforcement authorities in its inquiry. Commissioner Tisch said in a statement on social media, Mr. Madry, who left the department, but whose resignation is not yet effective, was suspended without pay Thursday morning as the search warrant was executed, the commissioner said. He was replaced on Sunday by John Schell, the former chief of patrol. All right, now, the reason that this story is interesting is because you want to talk about pussy inflation. You've just got to see what's going on. So, he's the guy. He's the top guy there in the NYPD. Who would he throw it all away for? Now, who do you think? What kind of lieutenant would he throw it away for? Who is he throwing it away for? Because I'm thinking, okay, he's throwing it away. He must be throwing it away for, you know, like a woman who looks like, I don't know, like prime Jessica Alba or something. Like, because otherwise, why not just, he could pay for, you know, a high-class escort. He's probably making very good money. He could, you know, he could get a woman from another country who is just really impressed by his money. He could get an American woman who's probably impressed by his status and his power and everything. He could get a very, very good-looking woman without endangering his career. So this lieutenant must be a stunner. Right? That's what I'm thinking. Now, the New York Times, they're not going to have a photo of the lieutenant, right? But the law firm does. The law firm representing her does. Okay. All right. So their press release, explosive allegations of sexual harassment and retaliation filed against NYPD's chief of department, Jeffrey B. Madry. Okay, so they have a photo of their client here. She's in her police uniform. She looks like the kind of woman who would just be his wife if you saw her on the street. She's herself like a middle-aged black lady. She's maybe 10 years younger than him. I don't know. If he's 45, she's 35 looking. She looks like I don't, like when you were a kid, your black friend, it looks like her mom. She just looks like a totally, completely average-looking black woman. Just, the pussy inflation is out of control. This is what you throw it all away for? All right, let me tell you something. If a man like that, a man at the pinnacle of his career, is throwing everything away, his whole life's work, is throwing it all away for a woman who looks like this, that's not sexual coercion. That's true love, is what that is. That's sweet. That if you thought romance was dead, you should look at this story. And the time we're living in, you know, this is considered bad. Now, I didn't read the details of this. I don't know if it's horrific or whatever. But, I mean, she's not really attractive. She's, like, the pussy inflation is out of control. This is crazy. This is what you throw your life away for? You shouldn't throw your life away for this. This should be the kind of woman he's just like. This is the kind of woman he should be meeting, like, at his black church. Like, he doesn't have access to women like this? What? He doesn't have access to women like this, so he's got to accost the women that he works with that look like this? That's crazy. Maybe it's a confidence issue. I don't know. A man like him should not be at all afraid to approach a woman like this on the street. You know, let alone meet her in a social situation where she knows that he's at the top of his career. Why has he got to go throw it all away? You know, if she looked like a model, if she was like, you know, 20 something years younger than him and she had a model body or something, then, like, okay, well, you know, the lieutenant's walking around like that. Of course the chief's gonna, but this is crazy. This is just out of control. I mean, people are complaining about the price of bread. I mean, just some average pussy it's taking your whole life away. God, it's terrible. It's terrible. All right, lots of stories here. What's the last one to wrap things up? Let's go to Mark Zuckerberg. Mark Zuckerberg, a few episodes ago, I think it was the first episode. Maybe it wasn't. Maybe it was the second or even the third. But I was talking about Mark Zuckerberg donating money to the Trump inauguration. He was donating money to that, and I think the story was he clapped for a version of the national anthem that was, like, sung by January 6th rioters or something like that. And it was really funny. But my point was that the power has shifted, and so people like Zuckerberg are just going to shift with it. I don't even mean it as a negative thing. It's like, it's a symptom of winning, like actually getting a real victory, that the powerful feel like they need to come over to your side. That's fine, as long as you're aware of it, that these people aren't true believers. But anyway, he's going even one step further now. And this is interesting. If you've seen this announcement, Meta is now going to have community notes like X does, instead of having fact checkers. All right, let's watch a little.
Hey everyone. I want to talk about something important today, because it's time to get back to our roots around free expression on Facebook and Instagram. I started building social media to give people a voice. I gave a speech at Georgetown 5 years ago about the importance of protecting free expression.
All right, blah, 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 blah. What is he doing wearing this chain? There's some things too many people have already talked about, so I don't want to mention it. But what he's doing with his hair, the chain. I think I read somewhere he had some injury, so he went on, like, some kind of steroid treatment or something. That's a half-remembered tweet, so that's good enough for me to talk about. That's completely true. You can look that up. That happened, I'm sure. Okay, so point one, replacing fact checkers with community notes.
With community notes, similar to X, starting in the US.
Starting in the US. Okay, that sounds good. He also mentions that they're moving the fact checkers from California to Texas because no one trusts people in California, which is why God is punishing them with a fire right now. Pray for Sodom, everybody. Pray for Sodom.
Second, We're going to simplify our content policies and get rid of a bunch of restrictions on topics like immigration and gender that are just out of touch with mainstream discourse.
Okay, yes. That is actually good. And again, this is a symptom of winning. This is just a side effect of winning. Like, it's not like you should think, oh, wow, we even convinced Mark Zuckerberg. That would be retarded. But Zuckerberg feels that it's more advantageous for him to come over to a different side, or at least play ball with them. It's definitely positive that you're allowed to talk about gender in a way that people talk about, like in their friend groups. In my DMs, in my group chats, and my people I meet in real life, we have a spectrum of thoughts about gender issues, transgender issues, that is completely different from the spectrum of discussion that's allowed in mainstream outlets. And X is the only place where reality is reflected. So now things are going to be reflected more properly on Meta's platforms as well. So you can still be cynical about it and say, well, it's happening for these reasons, but it's still a good thing. You can't deny that it's a good thing. It doesn't mean you should trust Zuckerberg, but it is definitely positive.
What started as a movement to be more inclusive has increasingly been used to shut down opinions and shut out people with different ideas, and it's gone too far.
Okay, so he's kind of pretending like he's ignorant, being like, oh, it was to protect people, but it was used to shut down opinions and go too far. Like, yeah, the intention was to shut down opinions. We don't pretend the intention was anything other than shutting down opinions. Like, job A was to shut down opinions, of course. But here we are now. Trump dodged the bullet and Butler, PA. We're in this timeline now. We're in the ultra rare timeline where the bullet didn't just miss, but it grazed his ear, and he raised his fist with a bloody face, and we got that photo with the American flag. We're in the best timeline now. Zuckerberg is kissing the ring. We can talk about trannies on the internet now, all over the internet. We can say whatever we want. No, not really. Don't trust that. I actually think I could probably get kicked off YouTube for this episode or anything else. Who knows? But I wouldn't get kicked off Facebook. So if I ever used Facebook again, I could stay there. Great. Great. That's victory, folks. Anyway, remember, if you see a guy with a shaved head and glasses and a big beard and a Canadian tattoo on the back of his head, he probably has fucked a kid.